I'll turn to Chris Charlesworth, the writer of Deep Purple, the illustrated biography. Why do a Deep Purple book now, Chris?
Well, I think sufficient time has elapsed for everybody to be a bit more honest about it than they would have done if I'd done it a year after the group broke up.
So that's what you were looking for, the definitive
I was
guide.
looking to get the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Did you manage, yes?
I think so.
Were the band cooperative from the beginning, the various members?
The vast majority of the musicians that passed through the group were. There's one notable exception there, the guitar player.
Oh, yes, that guy who sort of lives in America
What's his
at the
name
moment.
again? God damn it, begins with R.
Dickie, isn't it? Something like that.
Dick Black or something, is it?
Ritchie Blackmore didn't really want to know about it then.
No, well, he lives in America now, which was a geographical problem there, of course. And I did write a couple of letters to him, but he didn't respond. But funnily enough, Roger Glover, who is with him in Rainbow, who also lives near him in Connecticut, did respond and was extremely helpful.
Right. John, as a member of the band, how do you appraise the book?
It's very good indeed. It's as close to the truth as I would dare to see on paper. It's interesting on several levels because there's, as you say, there's all the trivia, if you like, the dates and the tickets and the posters and so on, which is nice to see. Actually.
It's fascinating, it really is.
But also in the interviews, I think, as Chris rightly said, we were perhaps, with the benefit of distance, able to be a little more honest. I honestly think that no one could write a more truthful account.
Yes.
Except perhaps me when I'm 80 and don't care anymore.
By which time probably nobody will care when you're all 80.
There'll be a few 80-year-old Deep Purple fans about.
Of course there will be, and you'll be one of them.
Yes, absolutely.
To what do you account the long influence of Deep Purple, which is still around in rock and roll today?
I think it, sort of the obvious thing is the right band at the right time. A bunch of musicians who didn't really seem to initially know where they were going, and so the direction of the band came in the nice way, not by deciding. It came by osmosis. It arrived one day. We said, started writing.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah, started writing the stuff that went on to In Rock, and it gelled. It felt good. We played, as you can see from the book, an enormous amount of live stuff. We were never off the road. One year, I think 6 tours of America or something ridiculous. And so built up a huge army of fans, a lot of whom became probably musicians, or a fair proportion of whom became musicians and wanted to play that kind of music. I think that's why it stuck. It was an original band playing very original music, and the reason it stopped, in actual fact, so quickly and so short, was that the responsible members of the band felt that it was no longer being, an original, thoughtful band.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Some songs like Smoke on the Water have become such classics that even synthesizer groups perform them. Nash the Slash, I don't know whether you ever heard of it.
Yes, I heard that version, thank you very much.
Fine, we won't talk about that.
I tried to find out who they were.
It was one man. It was one man, amazingly, working with tapes. I'm glad to see also in the dates that a show that I went to see of Deep Purple, the Portsmouth, on the 13th of September 1971, you made £1,026.37p out of that one.
Actually, that's another fascinating part of the book that
I hope the Inland Revenue aren't going to go through that all now.
They've seen it already,
They've seen it already. Otherwise, I couldn't have got hold of that information.
No, the interesting thing is you look back and see what a big-time, in quotes, band was being paid 10 years ago compared to what the same kind of band is being paid now, and it's frightening.
It's tuppence halfpenny, isn't it?
Yeah, really.
There's some lovely old photographs in here too, and they must be a little embarrassing for you, John.
There's one of me with a hat on, which I wish hadn't gone in. But
There's one of Ritchie in a cowboy outfit when he was in the Outlaws.
I just want to know where you got these wigs from. These kind of bouffant wigs.
I don't know what. I think that was called teasing your hair, wasn't it?
I think it was teasing the fans. I don't know about anything else. It's great stuff. I read in here something I didn't know before, that the band was nearly called Roundabout.
Yeah.
And also, I note that you did an awful lot of BBC broadcasts in the early days.
Tremendous amount, yeah.
What sort of shows were you doing then?
Those wonderful things where you used to turn up and load your stuff into a small basement, and the guy would seem to come in and put one microphone in and say, "Right, lads."
That's the balance.
Yeah, and surprisingly got some amazingly good results.
Yes. Actually, we still do that sort of thing now in our basement studio on Saturday Live.
Well, as it should be.
Works reasonably.
That's proper broadcasting.
One thing I'll tell you, in 1971, you were paid £5 for being on Seen and Heard, and I've got a funny feeling, John, that's a fiver more than you'll get today. I'm sorry.
I think
our fees have gone down.
£4.99 more because I've had a cup of coffee out of you. So
all right. Now, a question I'll direct to you, Chris, actually, about Ritchie Blackmore. He didn't cooperate with the book. He has a reputation for being a little awkward at times.
That's true.
But do you believe he was the powerhouse behind the group in its best years?
I'm pretty certain he was, and I think John will agree with me there.
John is, yes, he is nodding. Yeah.
I think when the group got off the ground in the first place, I think Ritchie had a fierce ambition because he had a chip on his shoulder, a huge potato on his shoulder, because he'd played in several groups before Deep Purple that had been successful live but had had no recording success. And he was a very, very talented guitar player, much more so than a lot of guitarists that were in the top 10. And he'd seen these people becoming fairly well known, and he'd seen these people's pictures in the music press, and he was thinking to himself, God damn it, I've been playing this thing since I was 10 years old. I can play 10 times better than these guys, but I'm getting nowhere. So when Deep Purple finally got off the ground, he had a sort of a cynical attitude towards the pop business.
A sort of element of getting back at it.
Yeah, almost like that, I would think.
Yes,
I'll show you.
Still with him today, I fancy.
Yeah,
I met him
I'll
a
play the
couple of
game
years
my
ago.
way.
Yeah.
I'll play the game my way. I'm not going to co-tie to you, because that's... I've seen how things can go wrong if you do that.
John, this must have led to some fairly awkward moments, to say the least.
That's beautifully put.
Not diplomatic.
Yeah.
Fine.
No, there was some very nose-to-nose confrontations. He and I never have been the best of friends. We've been what I might call the best of acquaintances, and a great respect for each other as musicians, but not a great deal of respect for each other as people. He doesn't like the way I live my life and choose to be, and I don't particularly like the way he lives his.
Reciprocated appearance,
But musically it was fabulous, because, if I would fling an idea at him and get it flung back and embellished, and so it would go backwards and forwards, which I think, just listening to that last track, you can hear where those kind of ideas happened. And that's what made the band as good as it was.
So it was a sad day when Ritchie left, do you think?
It certainly was. I still think he made the biggest mistake of his career. And I know I'm going to get howled at by Rainbow fans, but I still don't believe that Rainbow has ever been as good as the Purple that he left. And I would have imagined that if he'd wanted to get that particular bee out of his considerable bonnet, then he should have stayed within the confines of the band and taken a 6-month or 8-month sabbatical, done the Rainbow thing and realised that it wasn't as good, and come back home.
Yes. Since then, you've been offered amazing sums of money to get the lineup of Deep Purple, the original lineup, the best lineup, back together again. Will it ever happen, do you think, John?
Do you know, I really haven't the faintest idea. I mean, I'm now at the point where when somebody says it, I don't get excited anymore. Even if they add another nought.
and they're still saying it,
yes.
are they?
Only 2 weeks ago, there was another mention of it. You see, one has to look at the reasons behind it. The offers we're getting, and have been getting for several years, are based only on a financial consideration. They're people who want to make lots and lots of cash. That's why they're offering it, because they think they can. Now, if the band had the same, if those 5 members had exactly that attitude too, then it would be a sorry affair and not worth the price of a ticket. If, however, those 5 members felt that they could have some fun and enjoy doing it, I mean, I'm not putting down the money aspect, of course. I'm not that much of an altruist to say, oh, the money doesn't worry me.
But that isn't paramount.
It's absolutely not, because I would hate to see something destroyed any more than it got destroyed in its final death throes, but by that kind of consideration.
Chris, so despite the fact it would put your book out of date, would you like to see Deep Purple get back together?
I think it'd make the book sell, actually.
So you would love it?
Well, in fact, when I started working on this book about a year ago, John Coletta, one of the managers, was all gung-ho for one of these reunions, and I was thinking in the back, wow, if they just reformed at the time the book came out.
So, well, we'll see what happens. Let's talk to you a bit, John, about life after Deep Purple, currently with Whitesnake, and obviously enjoying it an awful lot.
Yeah, it's been great fun so far. We've had a pretty odd couple of years, in actual fact. I heard you talking earlier to Hazel about courts and litigations, and those things do rear their ugly heads from time to time in this business. It seems more than the motor trade, and we had the year before last, before this one, really was most of it was off the road because of legal niceties, and then. The end of this summer, I think. Yes, we got the album finished with one producer, and that got knocked on the head, and then we had to went to another producer. Then the studio broke down. Then Mickey decided he wanted to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if your engineer out there's got a copy of Hearts and Flowers. You can perhaps play the violin in the background here. So it's all a bit odd at the moment, but the album is finished, and everyone is very pleased, and it's out after Christmas. So that's the state of that particular...
State of play with Whitesnake.
Yeah.
What do you feel about the new wave of heavy metal bands, the Def Leppards, and let's not single them out anyway, just the new wave?
Well, you have to single them out because I suppose they are spectacularly successable.
Second most successful act in America after Michael Jackson.
And more power to them. They're smashing guys, and they do play extremely well. And have, good stage presence, which is, after all, half the battle. I think a lot of them are very derivative, and it's become a kind of... this heavy metal thing has become a kind of incestuous thing. It feeds on itself far too much, which is where, again, to go back to Purple, I think we were successful because we didn't provide confines for ourselves. We said, well, if a bit of Bach fits in there, I'll play it, because it sounds good. And
right.
Albeit played at 10,000 watts, but I mean, which would have surprised Johann Sebastian. But what I'm trying to say in my stumbling manner is that the new wave seems to have this long, very rigid corridor down which it must march. And occasionally you get a band like Marillion, which seem to be willing to
broaden the horizon
slightly, and they stand out to me because of that. But I wouldn't suppose they would like to be called heavy metal anyway.
Jon, thank you for coming in today.
It's
Chris,
been a great pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed. Deep Purple, written by Chris Charlesworth.